Hello again, everyone. This is Zombie Kids Rule, and I'm back with another video, which is not dialogue this time, so it's something different. My first 7 videos were all about dialogue options. So if you're just finding this channel and you're interested and curious about different ways to do, varied dialogue, random dialogue, using text in variables, using arrays, things like that, check out those other videos. I hope they're helpful. Especially if new folks are trying to find something specific and they want some different variety of options for dialogue. This video is going to be about one of the first things I tried to create in MZ, and that was random transfers. And so a couple months ago, when I was still pretty new to MZ, I had this idea where I wanted to do a lot of random things. I wanted to try to experiment with, could I send the player to random places, but then have the game remember where I sent them so it would repeat it later. And so if they were like on the screen here, if you're at a crossroads and there's 4 different directions, when you first play, whichever direction you go, there's a random result of where you end up. And then if you go back that same way, you'll go to the same place. But each time, there's a random possibility of where you're going to actually end up. So if 2 people are playing, they might get a different experience. If you restart the game, you could get a different order where things appear. And there's lots of different use cases that I can think of where you might find this valuable, where you want the game to be able to randomly send somebody someplace from a variety of options, but you want them to be able to get back there the same way. So the portal or the lever or the door or whatever is going to send them to the same spot once it's activated the first time. And if you have like 4 of these, like I do on the map, it won't repeat one of the ones. So there's 4 choices, and as you activate each portal, those choices get narrower and narrower. So I hope this helps. I am going to say ignore a lot of the other stuff on this map. There's a lot of little things I was playing around with. I actually made this game. You can see down here, random map test. I created a new game to try to play with this, and then I just added other features that I was testing as I saw different things I wanted to try. Can I make it so you can only transfer to some place during a certain time of day? Or this event over here, a merchant, an NPC only shows up during a certain time of day, or a camping system. So you will see some tinting of the screen because I do have a day-night system running in the background. I just didn't want to turn it off for this, so just ignore the tinting of the screen. Has nothing to do with this tutorial. So in theory here, I did test this. This works very well. I built some of it a while back where I got the transfers working right, but I struggled a little bit with getting the player to return to where I wanted them on this map. So that instead of transferring to the middle of the screen, which is kind of a cheat, they actually transferred to the correct spot from where they exited. And that took me a little while. I came back to it after a month or so, and I said, hey, I know more now, and I can figure this out. So let me show you what this does, and then I'll break it down of how I did it. And it may not be the only way to do it. It probably isn't the only way. And there may be better ways to do it. But this is just one way I know works. So here we are, a player. And in theory, I can go north, south, east, or west. And I'm going to end up in a random location. So I'm going to go north first. And it takes me to this town over here. And I just used the pre-built maps when I did this because I just wanted to grab things and test it out. So this took me to one spot. If I leave, it takes me to the same spot that I left. And if I go back, it takes me to that same map. So now this is set to that map location. If I go down south, it will randomly send me to one of 3 other places. It took me to this town. If I go back, it's where I came from. And if I go back again, it takes me to the same spot. So now I have north and south, took me to 2 different places. If I go east, there's only 2 choices left. It's going to send me to this other oasis town. And if I go back, it sends me exactly where I left this map from, and it takes me back to Oasis. So it's remembering. And now there's only one place left it can send me. It sends me there. And if I go back, it sends me to where I came from, and then it takes me back to the correct location. So this works, and if I were to stop this and I were to start it again, it should, again, randomly send me to different places. So I'll go north again, and this is, I think, the same. Let's go south, or maybe it was different. And this, I think, was different order. Let's go east. I think east was Oasis, and it's still Oasis. And let's go over here. So this must be the jungle. So I gotta make sure. I can't remember where it went the first time. So we're gonna do this one more time. I want to make sure. My memory is a little foggy here. So let's go north again and see where it takes me. Yeah, so now that was definitely different. Now I'll go south again. And yep, it took me to Oasis this time. So it's definitely randomly deciding where I'm going. And it's changing it up. Yes, that was Oasis the last two times. And now this will be the final, it should be Oasis, I think, if it's the last one. Oh, actually, we already went to Oasis, sorry. But anyway, so it does work randomly each time you start it. And let me show you how I did this. So each one of these transfers is essentially the same. And the four transfers are essentially the same. The way they're different is that the very first thing it does is it takes a control variable, direction. And if I'm going north, it's going to set direction to 1. And if I'm going south, it's going to set the direction to 2. And then if I'm going east, it's going to set the direction to 3. And if I'm going west, it's going to set the direction to 4. And I'm using that later to make sure I come back to be oriented and in the spot where I want to be. So that's where those are fundamentally different. Then after it sets the direction, each one of these transfers is going to call a common event. And the common event called random transfer is where the game is going to say, okay, first time I step somewhere, first direction I'm going, I'm trying to exit the map, I have 4 choices. I'm going to figure out which place to send the player. And then I'm going to remember it so that if the player activates that portal, that exit again, I'll send them to the same place. And then so it's going to set that, right? It's going to set when I go north, when I go south, when I go east, when I go west. It's going to set where the player is going to transfer, and then it's going to actually transfer them there in the common event. And then it comes back to this map event, and this conditional statement is using a variable. If D4 roll, that's the variable, is equal to the result of the random transfer, which is 1, 2, 3, or 4, then I'm going to turn on a self switch. I'm going to turn on one of these self switches. It all depends on what the result of the random transfer determination was, the roll. And I'm coming back here and I'm storing it in this variable D4 roll. And if I turn on switch A, it moves to this page. And all that's doing is it's basically saying, I'm going to remember that I transferred you to Normal Town. And if the other switch, self switch B is on, I'm going to remember I sent you to Abandoned Town. And then C is Oasis, and D is Mining City. And if we were to look in here, we could see that we are where we're sending them. Okay, it's going to be right after the portal each one. And that's all that this map event is doing. It's setting the direction, north, south, east, or west. It's calling the common event so that the common event will figure out, have I transferred the player from this before, and where did I send them, and how many choices do I have left? And then it's coming back and it's saying, okay, I got to activate a self switch because I need this portal to now remember where I sent them, where I sent the player, so I can do that consistently each time. That's all these 4 map events are doing. And like as I showed, each one of these pages is just a self switch and a transfer. That's all these are. Self switch and transfer to show which page is going to be active. And if we look at any of these, they are essentially the same. South is direction 2, do the random transfer common event, come back, switch A, B, C, or D, and then these are same thing, Normal Town, and then Abandoned Town, and then Oasis, and so on and so forth. And you'll notice that I also make sure that I tested this, that the direction the player is going, I didn't use the option for retain, because some of these maps, if I'm going south, I may end up facing north when I get to the new map. Or if I go west, I might be facing east or something. So I didn't want to retain, so I made sure that whichever map I was going to, the direction of the player would make sense, and I just set it to that. So those are the transfers from the map. But what is and I should just show you here, again, I just use these pre-built maps so that I very quickly could just test this out. I didn't want to build maps to do this. So Normal Town, I happen to be entering here. Abandoned Town, I happen to be entering here. Oasis, we were entering here. And then Mining City, we were entering over on the side. So the common event. The common event is the random transfer common event. Now, this is the one that's doing most of the work. And the first thing it's going to do is I have a label here called start, because what this common event has to do is it has to check to see, have I already set the transfer for this particular portal, for instance, this direction. If I have, I need to go back and do another random until all four have been used. So the first thing it does is we have a label here. The first time we come to this, it's going to basically bypass that. It's going to look at this variable and it's going to say, okay, I'm going to do a die 4 roll, and I'm going to randomly generate a number between 1 and 4. So this is our first conditional statement. And it's a long one, if the die 4 variable roll is equal to 1, then that's going to be Normal Town. And so what the game is going to do is it's going to immediately check to see if Normal Town on is equal to 1. Now, I didn't use switches here because it actually seemed to work out better for me to use a variable and for each of the towns and to use different numbers. Whether or not you could use switches, you can explore that on your own if you want to, but if you see the way I did this, the variable works much better. So if the die roll is 1, the game is going to immediately check, the event is going to check, is Normal Town on equal to 1? If it's not, the first time it will not be, then it'll just keep going down, and it's going to set the Normal Town on variable to the die 4 roll, which is 1, because this is the conditional branch that we're still in. You can tell by the diamond here, if we go down, we're still within that if die 4 roll equals 1. So when we get down to this point, it's going to say, okay, fine, I'm going to set Normal Town on to the die roll of 1 so that if we come back, this one will be a value of 1. And if that were true, then it's going to go back to the start so we can get a new number. And if it's 1, it'll go die roll 1, Normal Town 1. Oh, I'm going to go back to the start because I want to get a number different than 1. I want to get a 2, a 3, or a 4. So again, we're pretending this is the first time through. It skips this. It starts here, but then it skips this portion because it's not 1. It's going to set the variable Normal Town on to 1. And then it's going to say, okay, the direction. And the direction is from the portal from the map event. So if the direction was 1, which was north, then we're going to use a script this is basically turning the self switch of an event on a map it's turning it on. So this is the script that you would use. It's a great script. It's very, very versatile. $game self switches, and remember you have to make sure the capitals are correct. $game self switches dot set value. So it's basically setting a value. It's activating a switch is what it's doing. This 2 is the map. This 10 is the event on the map, and the A is the self switch that we want to activate. And by saying true, we're turning that switch on. And if we were to type false in there, it would be turning the switch off. So this is an awesome, awesome tool to use. So in this instance, we'll go back and check this. If direction 1, meaning I went north, on map 2, event 10, self switch A. So I'm going to go back over here. Map 2 is this one. How do I know it's map 2? I look down here, 002, so that's map 2. And event 10, that's the transfer portal. And I'm setting self switch A to on, this one, self switch A, which activates the transfer back to my Crossroads map. And you notice that on this map here, I'm in the the other maps. The very first page has a self switch, which means that this portal isn't going to do anything. If I ended up on this map, if I just started on this map, that portal's not going to work until the self switch is activated. So on this map transfer, I have the first page is self switch A, sending them back to Crossroads 8-1, which is going to be the north direction. And then 2 is going to be that's going to be south, actually, if I had gone south, and that's going to be self switch B. 3C is going to be if I had gone east, okay? And then this page here, self switch D, is going to be as if I had gone west, and it's going to send me back to the right spot on the Crossroads map. And so the common event here is saying, okay, depending on the direction I left the Crossroads map, north, south, east, or west, then I'm going to activate a self switch in that different map transfer event so I can get back to the right spot on the Crossroads map. And again, this $game self switches dot set value, the 2 is the map, the 10 is the event, and then the A is the switch, A, B, C, or D, and true is turning it on, and false is turning it off. So if I had gone north, it's going to set that portal to take me back to the right spot on the map. And then this would be south, and this would be east, and this would be west. And so these are essentially the same script, except I'm changing the A, B, C, or D. And then this random transfer common event is going to actually transfer the player to the appropriate map. And then it's going to end, and it's going to go back to the Crossroads map quickly so that it can do that second part that I showed you here, where it's going to turn the self switch on so that that transfer will remember where it sent the player. Okay, and so going back to this common event, all the rest of the common event is exactly the same as the first part. So it had rolled its 1 through 4. It checks, right? If it's a 1, is the normal town already been activated? If yes, I'm going to go back to the start and try again. If no, if this hasn't been activated, I'm going to keep going and I'm going to activate it, right? And then I'm going to decide if I went north, if I went south, if I went east, if I went west. I'm going to turn the appropriate self switch on for that other maps like normal town or abandoned towns transfer to send me back to the Crossroads. And then you get down here and you'll see this is exactly the same. If the die 4 roll was a 2, then I'm going to check to see if the abandoned town on is a value of 2. If it is already, I'm going to go back to the start because I'm going to try to get another number. If it's not a value of 2, then it's going to set that variable abandoned town on to a value of 2. So next time you go through, this will be true and it'll send you back to the beginning. And so once it sets it to true, it's going to go through that exact same thing. It's going to go if I went north, if I went south, if I went east, if I went west. This is turning on my self switches. And now I'm on map 3, which is actually abandoned town. So I know abandoned town is map 3. The event is the 10, and that's going to be my little transfer portal. And the page, I'm going to be activating the page with the A, B, C, or D self switch, right? And remember, true is turning it on, false is turning it off. and then it's going to transfer them to the abandoned town. Or if it was a 3, it does the exact same thing, only now we're going to Oasis, where it's going to check to see if the Oasis has been activated. If it has been, it goes back to the start and tries again. If it hasn't been, it says, okay, fine, I'm going to set the Oasis on variable to the die 4 roll, which was a 3. And then I'm going to say north, south, east, west, and I'm going to turn on my self switch. And I'm on map 4 now, 4, 4, 4. And I'm on event 1 now because there's not many events on the Oasis map. And I'm turning on my self switch. And then it's going to transfer the player. And then the last one, again, these are all pretty much the same. If it's a die 4 roll, if it's a 4, sorry, if it's a 4 result, it's going to check to see if Mining City on has a value of 4. If it does, it's going to send it back to the start. If it doesn't, it's going to actually set that variable to the value of 4. Then it's going to check north, south, east, or west. And it's going, whichever one it did, whichever direction you came from, it's going to turn on that self switch. And now we're in map 5. So map 1, map 2, map 3, map 4, map 5. If you look where my pointer is. And then it transfers the player to there, and then it's done. So the way this works is, again, just to kind of hammer this home, when we jump to the common event for the first time, it'll skip this. It'll randomly determine a number 1 through 4, and then it's going to go to the appropriate section. If you roll a 3 the first time, if the first result is a 3, it's going to skip this. It's going to skip this. And it's going to go down to this one. And it's going to say, if the roll was 3, which that's what it was, I'm going to check to see if Oasis. Have we been to the Oasis yet? If we have, then I'm going to go back and try again. I'm going to go back to the start. Jump to label. If I don't, then I'm going to go through and I'm going to set that portal to the Oasis. And then I'm going to make it so the portal on the Oasis map can get me back to the crossroads. Okay? And then so when we cancel here, we can go to any one of these maps. And Normal Town, again, this is just the transfer events to get me back to the crossroads. And the pages are the self switch A, B, C, or D. And it's to get me to the right spot on this map. If I went north, I need to come back here. If I went south, I need to come back here. East, west. Okay? And that is essentially it. Now, again, there could be easier way to do this. There could be a more efficient way to do this, but this works. And so, one of the things I was thinking about was, what if I wanted to make, say, 10 inns or 10 shops or 10 taverns, but I don't want to put a specific inn or tavern or shop in a specific place or a specific town. So when you're in a town, if you're in your first town or in some town you go into, and you go to walk into the inn or the shop or the tavern or something, when you walk through that door, the game could randomly decide which inn to send you to, which tavern to send you to, which shop to send you to. And that way, when you're in town A, you don't always go to shop A. You might go to shop B or shop C or shop D. And you can do the same thing with randomly determining what the shops have and where NPCs are and things like that. So I can think of a lot of different ways that you might want to randomize your map travel. And so, just because you're going north doesn't mean you're going to end up on the same path that you always follow when you go north. And you could do this with a bunch of maps a bunch of times, and you could really randomize the player experience. So anyway, that's how it works. I hope this helped. Again, really quickly, these transfers are all the same, and they function basically the same. And, I selected all of these, so you should be able to pause this if you wanted to replicate this. There's nothing fancy going on over here other than stepping to make these things kind of go on and off, right? There's an animation to them. They're below the character because I want the character to step on them. And it's player touch so that the player actually has to step on it in order for it to be activated. So, but nothing really fancy there. And once again, the common event is just one long list of where have I sent this player already? Have I sent him any place? And if I've already sent him someplace, I'm not going to try to send him to that same place again, and I'm going to narrow it down. And we're using that script to turn self switches on or in theory off. And this is the script for it. It's really great. I would write this down somewhere or save it because I've been using this all over the place, and it's really kind of cool because you can trigger self switches in other events on other maps and have them turn the event to whatever page you want it to be on to do what you want it to do. This is really, really versatile. So it's very nice. I like it. Anyway, I hope that helps. I hope this kind of sparks your imagination of what you might be able to do with this from a random transfer type scenario. And if you think of cool ways to use this, if this helps you, drop some comments in the comment section. Let me know ways that you might want to do it, or if you try it, what ways you did it, and if it was successful. If it wasn't, let me know, and maybe there's something I can help you troubleshoot. But if you do this exactly the way I have it, and you kind of pause the video and recreate everything exactly the way I presented it, it should work because I've tested this a bunch of times to make sure, and it works every single time for me. So again, folks, I hope this helps you. Let me know, ways you think you might be able to use this, or if there's another way to do it, if there's a better way to do it. Put a comment in the chat, and leave a comment and show where you found it. If there's another tutorial, or if there's another a blog post or something, by all means share it so everybody will benefit. Folks, if you like these videos, like them, subscribe, get notifications, and I will try to keep doing these as long as they are helpful. Honestly, I'm having a lot of fun doing them, so I'm going to do them anyway. But it's nice to know if they actually help people. So again, it's been great, folks. I hope you enjoy what you're doing, and happy game making. And I will see you later in another video. Thanks a lot, folks.